sports life and everything in between. Back hiatus of being gone on the road and pre-recorded shows and all the things. We're back in the Potosi Live studio. Hodge, Josh, and Misty's rolling on a river, floating on a river. Not real sure what she's rivering, but she's out. But joining us again, familiar face, familiar voice, Angie Penny, and we got a lot to cover, lots going on. Josh is. Did you drive the whole time?
I did.
Josh, we got two world travelers. Josh said not world traveler, but somewhere traveling. Ian Grubin, Hamlin kid that I've literally seen grow up from little dribbler basketball to now going to be a senior in Hamlin. I was on a very similar trip that you were on, and he's going to be our Big Country Electric My Town segment at the bottom of the hour. So, and then Andy, you were traveling. You were doing a little.
Last with some youth of our own from our church in a St. Paul's Saints game, which AAA is, but all Jay Schoen playing for the Toledo Money. So that's kind of cool.
Really? So he was what
organization. He was there last year, but back down in AAA. So greater flavor up there in St. Paul last week.
I think they probably did it very similar to drafting LeBron. Hey, bring up Young's brother for Mother's Day weekend so we can make a pretty good showing and sell some tickets.
Yeah, that was a good story. He did struggle when he got called up, so got sent back, but there's no shame in that at all.
Well, and again, that's the whole thing that we've seen, and we're going to talk about it. Pressure is real. We've seen it in the last couple of weeks in golf. We see it in other sports where pressure is real. Real life minor league Walt Driggers winning 12-7, and then a bus ride to Joplin as they get ready for 4 games this weekend. But they're playing well, and again, it's just interesting. And some news out of there is Michael Smoz, Smozna is known as Smoz, is getting to continue his baseball career for McMurray and signed a part of the portal is heading to West Virginia.
Oh, yeah, that's a little bit of a move.
Well, I mean, you think about it, and then the run that they made into the regionals and all those things. The landscape of to me is explaining, 89 may stump. Jumped in, we immediately go to football and the quarterback, jump backs, and the receivers, and you go play at Georgia. Next thing you know, you're winning a national championship, and you head to Texas or whatever. But it's happening in all the sports. We saw it in softball, and now we're seeing it college basketball.
Because at some point, and you just have a good year, market yourself, and before you know it, you're at a pretty cool spot playing some ball.
That really is true. That you can, if you are a late bloomer or whatever coming out of high school, and you don't get recruited by a big school, and you go to a small school, even a Division II, Division III. So there are benefits. There's to it all. That is one of those things that I really do see as a kid came from maybe a small high school or weighed a 6'3", 250, and like now you're a different player than you were in high school.
That's a lot of cheeseburgers, man.
Yeah, and you think about it, how for Power 4 conferences, why would you want a freshman? So that freshman at high school freshman is going to have to go somewhere to kind of get some notoriety, to get a chance, move on, because now as a Power Texas Tech trying to add to your pitching staff or you name the sport, why would you want to go get a guy that's 18 years old unless he's Cooper Flag.
Well, that's really, I've seen this a lot with baseball that I've paid more attention to maybe, but the way that the junior college, now count towards eligibility, and we still have people that are around that COVID anyway, and now they get more years, and so you've got people that are 22, 23 that they're full-grown men that are transferring from
and making money.
Right.
And making money.
And there's no reason for them to, because they're making money, there's no reason like, well, I've been in college for 7 years, I might as well go get a job. No, I can make a little bit of money and still
Yeah, the work study programs no longer exist.
but that does make it for those kids coming out of high school, it is very difficult to find a place to play, and you have to do the junior college route. And now junior college doesn't keep you from having 4 years to go somewhere else. It's a very interesting time to be a college
athlete, and if you needed to open a business as an agent, as a mentoring of helping college athletes, now is the time to do it. If you want to, because I doubt you have to have the same type of law degree to do as far as an NFL agent.
Oh, well, and that probably brings up another dark side to it. That who are these people? Like where that trust is in taking advantage of somebody.
That is not a little bit. People news this week, reported stuff like that. JJ Spawn winning U.S. Open. It was a great U.S. Open, such a great tournament. So congratulations, JJ Spawn. In July. And I talked about this, and I put it, guys are real. You're coaching in the all-star games, like Josh, if you're trying to win a PGA Tour event, kick a game-winning field goal, Tommy Fleetwood has a lead going in, just a few holes left, and finds a way to give it up, and Keegan Bradley wins it. What is the most pressure situation in sports? And I can say that as a Misty's bag question if you want to dial that back and think on that. But it is real. Pressure, I don't care what you're doing, if you're playing. It's different if you're playing golf with buddies, and I guess if you're playing a lot of money, it can escalate real quick. But kicking a field goal, making the free throw, the game winner, the game tire, you name it. I don't know how you simulate in practice a putt, a hole, to win a championship, to win a major, to win, you fill in the blank. Pressure's real.
Pressure is definitely real. And I do think that we can talk about that in depth.
All right, so I'm going to make that Misty's bag. All right, there you go. You already know it. I'm not going to trick you. Misty's bag. Misty's out. I've got the bag. We'll go there. Justin Tucker came out that the NFL is going to give him a 10-game suspension based on him violating the conduct policy. 10 games. Him and his agent are saying in his innocence. 10 games. Another guy that I think is probably the first kicker ever, first ballot Hall of Famer, now in question if he gets into it.
Yeah, it's going to hurt. Reputation will hurt. I think he'll still get into the Hall of Fame. Had a heck of a career, but the reputation obviously took a hit with some misconduct away from the field.
Do you think he still gets in Hall of Fame?
I don't know, because I think that there's such a stigma against kickers anyway that you add that and gives people an excuse to maybe just I think that he does deserve as far as his on the field ability. So that's it.
Yeah,
wait a long time to find
because we don't know when that 5-year clock will start. A couple of things, of course, NFL draft. We'll talk more about it. Cooper Flag, #1 draft pick, Dallas Mavericks. Will we'll talk about but that is definitely one of the things I wanted to talk about, and Andy mentioned it a little bit last night, and we talked a little bit about it again. Lawrence Hall Abilene online.com is where you can go get the car, truck, wherever you need. Conference alignment. McMurray is coming back. ASC did not see that. Did bring back the American South Conference, now 16 in it. ACU now making a move. Andy, I'll let you talk a little bit about that, of how they're, because I think it's important that these non-Power 4 conferences and non-divisions figure out a way. How do we stay relevant and changing up the conference?
Yeah, ACU stays proactive, of course, in this day and age of conference realignments. ACU makes a move yesterday and will now be in 26-27, one more year of the WAC, and then moving into what will be called the United Athletic Conference. The WAC was starting to dissolve. Grand Canyon was leaving the WAC. They'll do that this year.
Where are they going?
They're going to the Big West Conference, I believe, or the West Coast Conference, one of those out that direction. But the WAC was starting to break apart, dissolve a little bit. The Texas schools of the WAC stayed proactive, and they're now going east. What we call the United Athletic Conference. If you're familiar with ACU, they've been playing in this conference football-wise. The WAC schools that play football and the Atlantic Sun Conference schools that play football, they will now merge. The football playing schools of the WAC and the Sun will have the conference. It will just be those teams that don't play. Really a rebrand of the WAC. ACU, Tarleton, UT Arlington, as well as Central Arkansas, Eastern Kentucky, North Alabama, Austin Peay, and West Georgia. Some familiar faces as far as the schedule of the last few years. Now that's the conference for all sports.
And it helps when they're all the same. And then the other Monday, Texas State will be meeting to join the Pac-12, which used to be a big deal. One of the Power Fives, the reason there's a Power Four. And they'll be looking to join Fresno State, Utah State, Colorado State, San Diego State, Boise, and of course the leftover Oregon State, Washington State in football. And as I was talking before we came on, Gonzaga is in that conference. So conference realignment, everything's moving around and makes it interesting before, and all this will happen in 26, 27. Speaking of moving around, one that was on the road, literally like Willie Nelson on the road again and moving on from stadium to stadium, was Josh, and moving on back home are the Texas Rangers. And when we come back, we'll talk Texas Ranger baseball, MLB, and all the places Josh went. Yes.
40 and 40. The Rangers, where were they?
Welcome back to the Hodgepodge, Sports Life and everything in between. Appreciate you joining us. We're presented by Line Landing Cattle here in the Mall of Abilene at the Tulsa Life Studio, rocking and rolling. Hodge, Josh, and Andy Penny with you this morning. Lots to cover, lots to go through. Baseball is happening, and again, the Texas Rangers rolling through and had funny how the East Coast is feeling a little bit. I had a coworker that was traveling through, went to Boston to catch the George Strait concert with Chris Stapleton, made their way to Rhode Island, made their way to Maine, and they were in Maine, and it was 100 degrees in the place where most people were trying to probably get away from the heat, and the heat came with it.
There was a little heat wave that went through from the Midwest all the way to the Northeast and got everybody riled up. You know.
I did have to laugh. We were in Minneapolis. I did have to laugh. They had extreme heat warnings at 86 up there in Minneapolis last week. They were telling people to find some air conditioning at 86.
Well, and that was had a very interesting conversation with some people in Cincinnati because we were sitting in the sun, at Great American Ballpark. It was a ballpark, nice place to watch baseball. But in front of us, I mean, she was like dying, and she like said something to me about it being so hot, hotter than it than it normally is. I actually kind of find it to be okay. What? And I said, I went to a lot of games at the old ballpark in Arlington, and this is like a pleasure. And then she was like, well, that's not fair. You're just, well, I guess it's not fair, but that was kind of the middle of the United States watching baseball. In Pittsburgh, pitched on Friday night. Took a no-hitter into the 6 innings there, and then followed it up with his next start in Baltimore by going into the 8th inning with a no-hitter. And don't know the schedule. Just watch him produce for a little bit. The guy is otherworldly, and right now he is at the very top of them. And it's kind of just a pleasure to get to see that in person in Pittsburgh. It's PNC Park is known for kind of its views of downtown and the atmosphere of watching baseball. It's a great place. So yeah, as Hodge mentioned, we did. My boys turned 7 on the year before we went. That was in Arlington, and they wanted to go to a Rangers game again with their birthday. So we decided to just make the trip. So we 5 different Major League Baseball games that we viewed in four stadiums in 7 days. So
That's awesome.
Made a little, not a little circle, but a circle nonetheless. Left from Abilene, went to Cincinnati, watched the game there. Went to Pittsburgh, watched a couple games there. Drove back to St. Louis, picked up a Cubs-Cardinals game, so big rivalry there, and went across Missouri to Kansas City, watched the game there at Kauffman Stadium, and then drove back to Abilene. So that was the.
So when did y'all get in? When did y'all get back?
We got back on Wednesday night. I mean, it was still light outside. I don't remember what time it was, but it's about a 7-8 hour drive from Kansas City.
Just curious, what were gas prices like across the country?
They got more into the that when we were in, I guess it was Ohio, was when I kind of ticked up in gas prices, and then they got cheaper as you came back. So it was just, it was great trip. If you like baseball, those are 4 I guess have a lot of just general appeal. Kauffman Stadium, and to build a new one there. They're in the process of that. I don't know how many years it's going to be till that's done, but we got to see that. And they're all just great places to watch baseball. The St. Louis Cardinals, their stadium was the only one of the three that it's just a really, really big, baseball stadium.
It is probably because I had been to the original Busch Stadium. Almost, oh goodness.
That's probably actually the second Busch Stadium. They have three
that they've had in their time.
But the Ozzie Smith Busch Stadium?
Yes.
Yes.
And so I remember thinking of the two of the older stadiums that I've been able to see games at, was that one and the original Yankee Stadium. And now I need to be sure to try to get to Boston, to get to Fenway, before they decide, hey, let's do a whole new one, and we'll bring the Green Monster with us.
Yes, well, they have to do that. But, and that's, I don't know, like, Yankee Stadium would have been a place that I guess I kind of have regrets that I never got the ability to go to that, just with all the history that would be there. I've been to Wrigley, have not been to, but the thing with all those stadiums, those newer stadiums are to replicate kind of the old stadiums, and all of those places, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, St. Louis, as you mentioned, they all had those just kind of cookie cutter, generic kind of baseball stadiums that were multi-use or whatever with the that I guess was all the rage in the 60s and 70s, and then they got replaced in the the 90s, the 2000s with these throwbacks, which like us as Rangers fans, we've been able to go to the ballpark in Arlington. It was one of the original kind of throwbacks, that and the Orioles, what is Camden Yards.
Yeah, I say it all along. You mentioned not the original ballpark, but the original new ballpark, if you will. I said all along of the problem would have taken the football field, and now has Lone Star Dry Goods there apparently too, because it was a
no AC. Yep.
Well, and that is one of those things that I was sad, and we've talked about this probably on the show before, but when they decided to build a new ballpark, it made me sad because I loved the old one, had a lot of good times there, a lot of great just overall memories of watching baseball. Then the new ballpark came along, and at first I was like, man, this is very sterile, very not what I'm used to. And then, you're sitting there on a Sunday afternoon, and it's 97 outside and humid, and you're like, yeah, this is okay.
Yeah, it changed your mind in a hurry, didn't it?
So,
you kids don't like no.
I will admit there were a Rangers game, and I was like, yeah, that's just, like I don't want to do that. And now you don't have to worry about that. But like I said, it was a very fun trip, and we got to see Jacob deGrom pitch in person with pretty good seats. I mean, that's the thing that Pittsburgh. Well, like I mentioned, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and close states. So there's not seats. They're not like the third, fourth deck way up high. Like you had. The only game that we pre-bought tickets for was for the boys' birthday, like on Saturday, and that was a day game. And so I wanted to get one game. And we sat one section behind first base, kind of. So we got decent seats, I guess, that we bought on the trip. And they were in the shade early since it was a day game, and so that was the only thing that we bought in advance. All the rest of them, we just making all of that work as far as the logistics of getting from here to there and here to there. I didn't want to stack up tickets to something and then for whatever reason not be able to make it. So we just bought them all day of, and we had no problem getting tickets, and they weren't none of them were like games that were getting scalps or anything like
Right,
that.
because
So it's like,
you're going to watch the Pirates, who are at the bottom of their division.
right.
You're going to watch the Reds, who are just above the Pirates, and you're going to watch the Kansas City Royals, just above the White Sox. Playing the Rangers, who probably outside, except for maybe the Rangers.
Not to say much, but you're wrong. The Pittsburgh was absolutely filled up with Rangers fans. Like the hotel that we stayed in, half the people that I saw there were going to the Rangers games. And the thing that the reason being, I'm sure, is PNC Park is known to be a great place. It's one of those, for a lot of baseball fans, it is a bucket list place to go see a baseball game because of the view of downtown. They did a really amazing fireworks show. It was great. But the Rangers only play there every other year. They haven't played there in a few years, and so just a lot of people that came up there for the trip. I just flew in on Friday, watched 3 games, fly out on Sunday night. So it was.
You're definitely going to hang around for the Big Country Electric My Town segment, because Ian Gruden was one of those that they made sure they wore their Ranger gear on every game they went to. I don't think even if the Rangers weren't playing. So yeah, they were there. And so it's just, I think a lot of people, if that's your theme, is to try to knock out what you're doing. It helps that your kids were born in June, is to knock out that kind of trip.
And you've raised them right, too. Last 2 years, you've been to the ballpark on their birthday?
That's where they want it to be.
You're doing well, Josh Greer.
And I'm going to tell you, Detroit, I told you this in the text, Detroit's a cool stadium. We didn't get to go to a game, but downtown Detroit is a really cool area. And I guess you mentioned it, we got about 40 seconds of realizing we got to have stuff around the ballpark.
Yep.
And if you do that, you can knock out everything you need right there.
Right, and only of these 3, there's 4 that we went to. Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City is the only one that does not have like an entertainment district that surrounds the ballpark.
But you know what goes out there when that new one comes up.
Oh, that's going to be one of the first things that they do, I'm sure.
Be downtown.
It's because Cincinnati, I don't remember the name of the street, but there's a street that's just like blocked off.
Johnny Bench.
It's Johnny Bench. Yeah, it's Pete Rose. But anyway, just you walk out the front gate, it goes straight down. It's downtown, and there's just restaurants, bars, arcade things. Like there's people playing cornhole. The whole
Tailgating inside.
right.
I mean, they've got all this stuff down by the ballparks, and that's why if you can't get tickets,
you still just go.
You hang out at one of those places, watch a game. That's like Hunter Castleberry did that during the World Series. He was hanging out in Texas Live and kept just watching, leading up to, hanging out, and kept watching the tickets drop on the third-party sites, found one that he could afford, found one that he felt comfortable buying, bought it, and I don't even know, maybe an inning had already happened or something, and then walks across and is in the ballpark.
And I also was just entertained by if you remember, back pre-Texas at the ballpark in Arlington, there was nothing but people tailgated. They brought their own shades and all of that before the game. And he came in the parking lot, just tailgating before the game.
Days gone by.
Yeah, because that tailgating has disappeared because of these entertainment and district stuff. But it does make for just a party atmosphere, just a carnival. There's kids to do. There's restaurants. Like live music, the whole just environment.
Right.
And it was like that at Cincinnati for a day game on a Thursday, you know, so even more so on a weekend.
And it probably helps, and we're gonna head to commercial, it probably helps being in the summer, school's out, not as many people having to be at work, vacationing, and obviously school is out. Speaking of school is out, but before you know it, it will be back in, and this kid will be kicking off his senior year at Hamlin. When we come back, our Big Country Electric My Town segment, Ian Grubin, Hamlin Pied Piper, and Traveler just like Josh.
Hey, what's up, man?
How early do you have to get up this morning? 6. There you go. Andy.
Nice to get you too, man.
That's great. Nice to meet you.
All right, Josh, I'm gonna keep you here for the segment.
Okay.
Talk about, since y'all both went on some journeys. I'm gonna go with Ken. Your dad come with you? He had to work. All right. Just pop right there.
Yeah, take that one, man. I'm gonna eat a burrito while you're.
You are basically live, so don't say anything you don't want to.
Yeah, you're on right there.
FYI. How's the trip?
It's fun. It's fun. Y'all go to ball game? Yeah. So we started at, we drove to Cincinnati, saw the Reds, drove to Washington, Baltimore next, watched the I love Camden Yard. It was very pretty. Yeah. We went to Washington, saw stuff, watching the Nationals. Went to Detroit, game got canceled, so we couldn't watch that game. Went to Toronto, watched AJ, Niagara Falls. Wow, that's awesome. Yes, sir.
We get to Cleveland.
And I saw Cleveland, yeah.
We get,
And I missed out.
But if they were playing at home on Sunday, we were going there and then, you know, they were going
Up Jason.
I bet so.
He made Major League Baseball tour guide.
who was it?
Our police chief.
Oh,
So he knew the MLB replay guy at Pittsburgh. Like, knew him, I don't know from where. So he hooked us up. We got balls. He kind of showed us around a little bit. Then he knew the Notre Dame head athletic manager, football manager. So we got on the field, in the locker room, Notre Dame. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, you
no, it's like,
You can sit up top. Yeah, different pictures of John that your dad had posted. Blue game, huh?
Everybody had a passport.
They might have to wait for the Blue Jays game.
My dad said, sure.
Okay. Good shout out to the chief. It's crazy that you're finally going to be a senior.
It's crazy.
I remember watching you and refereeing little kid stuff. And he was real little when I was out there.
You getting big now, too?
Gonna be a junior high?
You'll be 8th grade, yeah.
Okay. And your sister will be a sophomore?
Yes, sir.
So Ian, we're going to talk about kind of the trip and all that, but probably about your senior year, how you've seen in Hamlin we are competing.
Okay.
we'll talk World Travelers first, Josh.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Hodgepodge Sports Life and everything in between. And you know, when that starts playing, it's time for our Big Country Electric My Town segment, brought to you by Big Country Electric Co-op, where they take care of their members in Roby Center and Stanford, the local player coach program. And today we're highlighting Pied Piper, who has seen 3 programs, the whole athletic program, if you will, make a change to the direction of success. And so we appreciate Ian making the journey from the studio. Ian, I appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for inviting me.
So you kind of have a little bit, I've told people, and I'm putting it in a rundown, you and Josh had a similar last couple of 10 days of traveling, but how good was it? Just real quick, put back to your own bed.
Amazing. So great.
Well, how did you feel? I mean, 5.
Yeah, it was an adventure. The last day that when we came back, my kids, and they were just like, we went through Oklahoma City, which is not far from Kansas City, and they're like, let's just stay here. And we're like, no, we're not. No, we're like, I'm ready to go home.
Right. But so again, Ian plays like everybody does in a town like Hamlin, plays everything. Probably Chance walking out the door with basketball shoes when they need it, especially during summer when we're playing different things. But so what was it like? I mean, I'll kind of go with you and Josh. How was the packing? Because I mean, did you have to load up and pack? And
My packing wasn't crazy. My sister's packing was pretty crazy. But mine was just simple. Couple jerseys, couple shorts, and lost it halfway through.
What about you? I mean, I noticed y'all swam, so they hold your swimsuits outside.
Yeah, it was just dry them off as much as possible. That was the one thing. As soon as we got to the hotel, it's like pool, like which. So it was good.
So, Ian, talk about where all y'all went.
So we went to Cincinnati first, then Cleveland.
So, y'all, which Reds game were you at?
Reds and
Don't play the Twins.
I was going to say, did y'all not know y'all were?
we went Cincinnati and then Cleveland and then to Camden. That was very cool. It was very pretty. And we went down to Washington, D.C. and saw all the monuments there, saw the Nationals.
I was in D.C. What day were y'all in D.C.? I was there all the week. You probably don't know what day, but I was there.
The big parade. We were there that day.
Also, we were there. We got there on the 16th, so y'all were there that Saturday.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Did y'all watch the Nationals or no?
Yes, sir. We did.
Okay.
Then we went back up to Detroit, and so we couldn't watch that game.
The downtown Detroit,
Very just nice.
because I think a lot of people, we were there this time last year watching the Rocket Mortgage Classic and all that, and everybody told us it's totally changed because used to you wouldn't go anywhere by yourself. Very cool town.
It was
and the Tigers were awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that y'all missed the game there.
We'll go back though. And then we went up to Canada, saw Blue Jays play, and then Pittsburgh and West Rangers.
It's a pretty good trip. And then, so talk a little bit. We've got to give a shout out to the experience you got at Pittsburgh. And then we went to Notre Dame, which was part of our trip last year, but we did not get the access you got.
So our police chief Jay Strong hooked us up. He knew a guy at Pittsburgh, MLB replay guy. Forgot his name. I'm gonna read that later. But he got us balls. He gave us just told us about the stadium. It was very, very cool experience.
Hey man, on instant replay stuff, it feels like Major League Baseball. They struggle on that. Did you have a favorite stadium?
Probably Pittsburgh.
Wow, really? Of all of them?
I think so.
Which game did you go to in Pittsburgh?
Rangers.
On Friday or Saturday?
Oh, we saw
Okay.
Friday, Saturday, jump on Sunday.
Okay, yeah. So I was at both those games as well. There were a lot of Rangers
A
fans.
lot of Ranger fans there.
So you both got to see the DeGrom pitch.
Yes.
That's huge. I mean, a guy that, we talk about these phenoms of Caitlin Clark, Cooper Flagg, but you look at, we talk about Tiger Woods. What kind of career would DeGrom have, or had, or what do you look at it, if he wasn't so injured?
Oh, I know. Well, he's got count stats, as far as amounts of wins, amounts of strikeouts are not as high as they would have been if he wasn't out, several seasons, 2 seasons, I guess, that he missed completely. But yeah, seeing that, seeing him pitch live, is something that it is kind of like, it's a special moment. And when that game got rained out in Detroit, for a second there, I thought that Skeens might get to go against DeGrom on Friday, and that would have been something that I would have just passed.
Right.
But if you double the next Skeens pitched on Friday.
So how many stadiums, do you know how many stadiums y'all got?
We have 7, I think. So, wow. 28?
Yeah, so only 6 left. Do you know those?
We have the Diamondbacks, both of Detroit and New York.
Wow.
Yankees.
The Mets game?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow. Go there. There you go, Josh. Goals. I heard it's one of the best stadiums. Unfortunately, the team doesn't match the stadium.
But
So again, Ian, I was thinking you guys just went on very similar trips. Niagara Falls is pretty cool. Did you hear about how many people get in a barrel and used to go all over?
I did not hear about that.
That's a true story. People use the original log ride. It's the barrel, and yeah. Anyway, so.
And that was in pre-TikTok.
Can you imagine how much money that guy would have made, or at least the people that filmed it? But I thought you would be a great fit for our My Town segment during the summer. You have been a part of, well, first of all, your dad and we've been a long time. And you see ups and downs. You've seen the Russell Lucas years of going to stadium away from winning it all, some things. But then you've been in some valley years, and you have been a part of that turning around of where all playoffs. Unfortunately, had to play Munster, who won it all, went 3 rounds deep in basketball, and then you played Gordon, just a step away from, well, you would have been in the state tournament if it was still. You've seen this success turn around, and now as a senior, getting to continue that. What has that been like, seeing that growing pains, if you will, but seeing it worth it now where you're at?
It's been awesome. My sophomore year, Botus took over, and he preached hard work, discipline, and we bought in, especially my class. We bought in. We've put the work in the weight room, the work in the field, and started paying off. It's amazing.
So how do you think that's helped? Because you mentioned as a senior, now that you guys are successful, hopefully that recipe that you talk about, that pattern, that aim for success is trickling down younger groups buying in.
Yes, sir. Our young guys are following our footsteps. We had 2 freshmen help us out in playoffs this year. We had Jaden Garner and Ian Hutchings pitch huge innings in Game 3 of playoffs this year.
And so beat some good teams along the way, had some close games in the baseball playoffs. So what are you looking forward to? What's the summer now? Are you back in the weight room? Are we playing summer basketball? I know we had a coaching opening at the basketball. I don't know if that's been filled. What's the summer look like now as you get closer? I hate to tell you, July's next week, which means 2-a-days is right around the corner. What does the rest of the summer look like as you get ready for your mom and dad? Look like as you get ready for your senior camp?
I got morning workouts every morning, 7 to 8:30. That's every day. And then we go lift at nights, shoot at night, throw routes at nights. And that's just every day, basically. Put the work in until first day of 2 days.
Which will be here before you know it. And so, which of the sports that, because again, I mentioned it, Ian plays everything. Which of the sports do you love, or is it whichever one's playing, that's one you love now, that's most?
I'm really a big basketball and baseball guy. I like football too, just those are my
two ones I would say I love.
And so, what does the year look like? I mean, how many guys we got coming back? Do you feel like it? I know, being in a class, and I've said all along when I was coaching Roby, when you're in a classification where your enrollment in, it helps. So how does that? How do you feel this year coming into repeat success? If you got those things, what does the year look for you guys?
We're returning 8 starters on both sides of the ball in football, so we should be solid for district title in football. Basketball, we're bringing back from ACL tear last year, so it'll be a big point guard starter for us. And baseball, bring back 7 starters, all 3 pitchers.
So how much has it been talking about Botus, who's been there, family's kind of been in him for a while, and as assistant role gets bumped up to that. How much is that stability being around? They do well, they leave the small school, go get a job.
He says he loves us, and
Probably, what are you looking forward to, and how do you want to take on the senior season? Growing up, I'm probably all the way through most of your seniors.
living my life senior year. Living my life.
Well, enjoy it, because Josh and I can both attest that it'll come by, and which you'll probably stay in better shape than in good shape. You'll probably stay in better shape than I am. But, I appreciate you coming in. Like I said, when I thought of who would be this, our big country lecture, my so how did y'all entertain yourselves in the car?
We did driving every 2-hour shifts, so my dad would finish it usually. Entertainment, movies, music. We watch so many movies.
Can you imagine having even 2000 or 1995, 90? If your senior trip was what you just did.
Lee and I were talking about this on Wednesday when we were driving back. That's when the Grom pitched. And I was listening to it on the radio, was run through the MLB app, on the phone. So you didn't have to find a radio, no matter where you were, and you don't have to worry about signal or all of that. And I remember distinctly trying to catch games back in the past where you're driving and you're like just cruising through the stations, like is there a phone on, or like what channel is it? And beyond that, Luke was in the back with his iPad, earphones on, watching the game on his iPad, and I was just like thinking about how different that is. You not only can you listen to the game anywhere you want, but you can watch it anywhere you want. So that's as Hogg mentioned back in when I was your age. And this is the walk to school uphill both ways, but you're just CD player didn't skip too much when you're hitting bump. The extent of the entertainment on a trip.
Did y'all walk around Pittsburgh?
We did. We stayed. We stayed up was literally out the front door, walked across the street, and there was the hotel. So we got there on Friday, parked the vehicle, and didn't move it again until Sunday. Where the downtown is and around quite a bit. It's a really cool place.
It is. Did y'all see the players?
No, never did.
We walked around after the Saturday game. We should walk in and ate Subway. But the Grom walked right past us on the street. Just by himself, walks past us. Good picture, good autograph. We saw a young walk in. It's crazy how they just walk around the street.
I heard that, like Bruce Bochy said on the pregame show, he was talking about walking to the stadium from the hotel. He has a hard enough time walking out to the pitcher's mound, so I figure they couldn't be staying too far away.
Well, and I saw the pictures y'all posted, and I was wondering, did you stay in the team hotel or just happen to be there?
No, some Hilton. The team hotel was like 2 blocks away, so we sit and wait outside. We got autographs, got a picture with Josh Young. Then we walked back to the hotel. We got sources. Just by himself walking.
Which of the two, I think MLB was the hardest to. You better know who they are,
Right, they
because
don't look the same necessarily when don't have their cap on, just.
because to me the only other ones are golfers. Like if you go to Colonial and around, they're eating, they're staying somewhere near the course, and you'll go somewhere where they look like, especially because how tall are you?
6 foot.
6 foot. There's 6 foot or 5'9", 5'10" golfers that are there that are just obviously wearing khakis. And there's normal people. Yeah, they just blend in. And when you start, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if DeGrom were to be one of our mall walkers right now, if I would recognize.
He's tall.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have.
I have happened to see people like in the Metroplex. I've seen players from different sports and stuff. I'm seeing Eduardo Navarra at a mall, but he wasn't necessarily probably the only 6'10" Hispanic that wasn't
Basketball
hard to,
player?
Yeah, played for the Mavericks. Wasn't hard to be like. It is interesting. They're they're normal people. Yeah. Like
They got to eat.
Yeah,
They got to eat. They've got to, they don't want to be stayed in a hotel. Because I'll never forget, and I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, and the cool thing is we've got Ian here, and your dad said you're going to get to play golf, so I'm curious how that works out for you. But is like getting to, when we in San Antonio, and it was at the end of October, which was the end of the NBA season, and we're in La Cantera, and Rockets, of course, I think that's just normal in the year, not a lot of travel. The Rockets were in town playing the Spurs for like one of the last Final Three, staying in the hotel. Now they stood out. Dwight Howard stood out, but it was funny. We were down in the lobby, hanging out, and it reminded me of coaching at Rose when you had an overnight trip. Players were in the lobby hanging out and had to have their chaperones or their assistant coaches or whatever they were in charge of them. Hey, James, all right, it's time to go. James Harden, I'll never forget, sitting in a chair, leg draped over, playing on his phone like he would. Y'all went on a basketball trip. They're human. They creeped up in a hotel room, and that coach was like, hey, the curfew.
Yeah.
$1 million athletes. But I think that's what's so cool is once you get around them and you find out, now don't get me wrong, and they're normal. There are guys out there. I will not say his name on air, but there was a guy I saw in the elevator. I'll tell you all off the air. Ran into him. He was a commentator, former player. We get in the elevator, same town. We go up, and I recognize him. And I say hi, even call him Mr. Blank. And wasn't any threat, wasn't asking for a picture, wasn't asking for an autograph, just like I would you, hey Josh, what's your lunch like? Total not fan. So later that night, go to the game, and we were able to go down before the game started. And I started yelling, hey, come on, and joking with him. Ended up disappointing.
Yeah.
How was Young?
He was really nice. He was nice.
But you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you meet those guys, and I had a friend of mine that said she ran into Aaron Watson down in San Antonio and was nervous, and then was nervous about saying hi. And that's like, hey, Aaron would have been the perfect one to say hi to because he'd have been perfect with it. but athletes, it's just interesting on how they are when they're out of their element.
No, yes, and you're right. There are people that are very arrogant, hard to deal with. They don't, I guess, handle it well. And there's people that are very gracious and understand their place. They have fans and people that look.
And there's an obligation that comes with whether you like it or not. Responsibility. And each level that you go up,
There's
more responsibility that comes with it. So anyway, Ian, I appreciate you taking the time this morning. Where are you playing golf today?
We don't know yet. We're gonna go hit the range in Maxwell probably. See how we hit range. If we hit range good, maybe go play Maxwell a little bit.
All right, there you go. All right, Ian, appreciate it. Good
Sure,
luck
thank
this
you.
year. We'll have Ian back and maybe when the season gets rolling. When we come back, we'll kick off hour number 2 with more Hodgepodge. All right, Ian, we're going to get a photo. Photo.
So Kenneth, your dad?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I've not seen him in a long time.
All right, Ian, if you get in the middle, we'll get a photo of me and Josh. And Photoshop this one. Have you hired a basketball coach?
Yes, sir. We hired Coach Dye.
Oh, really? It's his son. Thanks, Ian. Great. Yeah. All right, I need to see. Good stuff.
Had a hard time waking up this morning.
Yeah, there was a
Russ went down for a while.
trying to give Coach Dyson a little time.
All right.
So, Cooper flag. We'll do Misty's bag.
Okay.
And talk about pressure.
All right.
So, Josh, we'll do Misty's bag with pressure.
Okay. I wore my Flying Bison hat. Every exception Rangers. So I had a lot of people that would just ask me, and I tell them, oh, it's minor league team from Abilene, Flying Bison, and very few people even had a clue that what Abilene was until we were in Kansas City, and then they were thinking Abilene.
I like it.
Team
team.
Yeah.
In Kansas City. How close is that to Lubbock? Because everybody else is how close is it to Dallas up there? I'm sure with Mahomes. How
Yeah.
close is that to Lubbock? You know, Patrick Mahomes. Texas is a little bigger.
From Abilene. Now I get a kick out of saying from Buffalo Gap. But that is the thing that they're always like, so how close is that? And it's always like Dallas.
Yeah.
It's a little bit west.
Welcome back to the Hodgeback Sports. Welcome back to the Hodgeback Sports Life and everything in between. Hour number 2, brought to you by Coleman County State Bank. Want to dive into, it's time for, again, we mentioned that it's Hodge, Misty, not here, but Andy Penny in, but we do not want to miss an opportunity to open up. What you got in that bag? Brought to you by Mulligan's, Misty's Bag. A lot of things going on at Mulligan's Sports Bar and Grill. Golf, don't forget, $5 on Monday nights. And they've got some wrestling coming in on July 19th. Get your tickets. I was trying to find the exact flyer for it. Dwarfs versus Minis at Mulligan's. Be sure to get your tickets July 19th. And then on July 12th, they got a glow-in-the-ball golf tournament July 12th. First hole was played at 6. Second hole was played at 9 p.m. We'll share this right now. Boom, shared. Get you glow-in-the-dark. You ever play glow-in-the-dark golf?
Yeah.
One time.
Minis. Get a preview.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, we need to
Got the right word.
Yeah. That's a Saturday, so yeah.
somewhere else.
No doubt.
On that, Kyle, we're on that. So I gave you what the question is going to be to think of it. Is pressure is real. We were talking about it, comparing it to, and we were sitting there watching it. Tracy and I, youth tour, shout out to Sarah McClellan from Big Country Electric, part of our youth tour sponsors. We were on that trip with all those kids. I encourage kids to sign up and try to do that next year. And we got back to the hotel and we're watching it, and it just started fading away from Tommy Fleetwood. And he's on the last hole. All he has to do is par. All he has to do is 2-putt, and at least at worst go to a playoff. Ends up 3-putting, misses, loses Bradley.
Still never won a tournament.
He still never won a
That's what I
PGA
thought.
championship, PGA tournament. Most top 10s, all the things that he has. And all I could think of was how pressure is real. And I kept comparing to a kicker. All you gotta do, you gotta make this. And then I started thinking, how many times has he missed? How many times and all that? And how many thoughts must be going in your head of the replay of the last time you had a chance to win? And this is probably one of the closest where literally what is it? A streak from the speaker, what it is?
Snatch the people.
And so it got me to thinking, 500 and maybe the club championship, the closest I get to pressure. It made me think, what is the most pressure situation in sports?
Well, I love the topic because this is sports. This is why we love sports. This is why we play sports, or for the pressure moments. So I want to go ahead and throw that out. I tend to lean towards the team sports where an individual is put in a pressure situation versus an individual who the only person it affects individually is himself. Where in a team sport, when you go the field goal route, hey, you've had all of these guys on your team do the things that they've been asked to do that have put you now as the kicker in a position to win the game. You're carrying the weight of not only yourself performing your job and executing what you're supposed to do, but you're also carrying the weight of the other 52 guys, let's say, on an NFL roster, who have busted their individual situation.
I actually, 100%, and I had a very similar thought process to come to this answer. And that is like, if you're winning a golf tournament after 3 rounds and 16 holes.
71 holes,
Right.
with the 72nd on the line.
Yes. So you've done a lot of things right to get there. Is obviously part of the game of golf. You've hit your drives, you've hit your approach shots, like you've done a lot of other things well to get done. And putting is part of golf, but it's not the only part.
Right.
And I was saying about making a free throw. I've seen games where it's down to you got to make these 2 free throws with up or go up by 1 or whatever. But you've done something to get to the free throw line. You've contributed to your team to base. Same thing with baseball. If you're up to bat with a runner on second, you're down by 1, but you played the rest of the game and hopefully you've done something, hopefully the other team where there's an error you made in the first game, that would add some pressure. But overall, you've done your job at some point to get to that point of having pressure. But I agree with Andy. If you're a kicker, as they say all the time, you have one job. You have one job, and that's to make a kick.
And in their defense,
now a snapper and a holder have
right,
to do their thing.
they are involved in making it happen. And to me, the two, normally the thing that happens, I think, is different. In basketball, they'll say one free throw. And I guess I say in football, well, we should have never been in that situation.
Oh, yeah. Well, you hear that all the time.
But I think that's just because that's from the people that missed it. In football, it may be such a game, and the same with basketball. Yes, you could look back on the free throws that were made, but even, let's say you were 10 for 10 in free throw. It does come down to that when you say, well, I've never been in that position.
Oh, and that's one of those things you always think about, a bad call, somebody. If you look, even a golf tournament where, he melted down and had a 3-putt to lose it, I bet he could look back to something he did on Thursday that, like, I left that stroke there at the time.
Never would have been in that position.
Yeah, it didn't matter. I parred something I could have birdied. That, like, it's like, so I think that in any sport you can say, if it's close at the end, you look at the tape and find that one thing that happened way back there. You compare that.
I agree. Golf is the simple fact, especially you could have, or you may have settled for par, but missed your birdie putt by inches.
Right.
And see with the team sport perspective on, yes, if I don't make this, and that's why you feel so bad, and that's why kickers, and I talked about it last week, the what ifs. What if Scott Norwood makes that field goal?
And I'll say that I was thinking of Scott Norwood this whole time. If you've not seen the 30 for 30 documentary, The Footballs of Buffalo, Scott Norwood, that was that 1991 Falls of Buffalo documentary is 30 years. 30 years later, and you can see
The trajectory of a lot of things. Bill Parcells doesn't win that Super Bowl. Does does the Bills still go on a 4-run Super Bowl, or do they win it, Super Bowl hangover, and open the door for somebody else to make it in the AFC that year? And so the pressure.
If that team beat the Cowboys, I mean, it could have just like.
Yeah, I mean, does the
you can
confidence,
you can wormhole a lot of stuff.
how much does that change if that history, if there isn't Lakes is out, Dan, is Ace Ventura even made without that? So what is the most pressure situation? And we'll go toward not necessarily golf as a whole, but trying to get that one. We see the pressure that an NBA player like Dan Marino, Park, you name it. It was just the Travelers Championship, only prestige with it, but the pressure of getting that first one and opening up a can, if you will, of a plethora of them to fall.
And I will say, on the flip side of that, we have seen the release of that pressure or tension when Rory finally
100%.
wins the Masters.
I mean, tears start flowing.
Phil Mickelson, when he won the Masters for the first time, you can immediately see.
Well, and when you get that can't get over the hump, kind of like reputation, and I think you do see that a lot in golf because it is an individual sport, so it's way more. You say that about athletes in other sports and team sports, and I think that you could be one of them and be on a team that's mediocre and you're not going to win the championship. I mean, except for maybe in basketball, I think that's the only one that like one player could really.
Thomas, automatic Hall of Famer lineman. Played for Cleveland, not ever going to win a title.
Right.
We now see Zach Martin, ring instant Hall of Famer, all the things. Never happened.
So I think in golf you can put that on one particular than in football. And I think, but there's a lot else that's gone, and you can, nitpick it if you want. But then you kind of mentioned earlier, it's not a moment of pressure, but like, Cooper Flag gets picked 1-1, phenom, all the things. Getting picked 1-1 is huge pressure. And you couple that, especially with him going to the Mavericks, being the guy that is now supposed to replace,
pick up the torch off the ground.
There's even more pressure.
And we're going to talk about that in the next segment about what that means. But I look at the golf perspective, and yes, I enjoy golf and all those things. But so many of those other guys, and they do, they still make some decent money getting 5th and 6th and all that. And guys today, a lot of the time, money is, but for some of those golfers, if they were, and Tommy Fleet was a little bit of an exception because he has been so many top 10s, and we can look in the break on how much money he's won. But if a guy wins that tournament one time, it buys him more years. He gets exemptions for 5 years, or it's either 2 or 5 years on tour to where his card's secure to continue to make money for the next X amount of years. That's why I think it's such a game changer. If you've got a chance to win that tournament where the pressure is so high. So throw it out. Most pressure situation in this segment. What is the most pressure situation? Go.
It is kicking a field goal.
Game winning.
Yeah. Playoffs, Super Bowl, like national championship game just makes it even more so. But I mean, I think we versus a couple, like there's still just an incredible amount of pressure.
Yep, I align. There's plenty of them out there, but I think that's number one on the list.
And I think the reason, and I could go in free throw, because for the most part, the the free throw's still 15 feet. That's every time.
A free throw that you had to make that you didn't, I would probably short on like
One B.
go like Aggie Swift because that's how much pressure there would be.
I will lean toward. I do think we're on the PJ Tour in the sports world, but the moment I will not say free throw, distance is the same every time. There's but in football, 3-yard field goal is the same as if it's 50.
Oh, yeah,
Because it's still, I know that's, well, no, it's not object. That's almost 20 yards more. It's still straight for the win. And that's why you see extra points missed today. The field goal to win it all, the most pressure.
Fleetwood, by the way, career earnings of $33.7 million. So don't feel too bad.
So when we come back, we're going to pick up where Josh was talking about. We're going to pick up the flag and see if Cooper can run with it and what kind of pressure it comes with it. We'll be back. 33.7.
I think now you know what big checks.
Next one, next week.
Gilmore too.
I can go more too. So I really hope they don't screw the boots on this one.
Please get the dwarves and the minis on the show. Please.
That text is going to go out to.
Because we were sort of mentioned, my life very quiet this morning. Had to get all my clothes out of last night, get out of the room, sneak out, shut the door. 2 or 3 weeks ago,
I was the same way. I got to work. This Nike, but the other shoe had a different Nike.
Oh, whoops.
oh, that is special.
I should have just kept it that I did it on purpose.
I mean, that's what the cool kids are doing, right? 2 different shoes.
At Joplin. I didn't realize that kid going to West Virginia played for the Bison. Because he's a Lubbock Cooper kid, but I didn't know he was down here playing.
Because the other pair looked kind of similar. Old and will turn. Problem at draft, like they'd be drafted by somebody else the wrong hat.
I saw Ben.
One got two. Yeah, like he was drafted for with Clippers.
Yeah, Ben Pelt was talking about that the other day, but I didn't know what he was talking about.
And that he was traded, like the pick was for the Hornets, and got traded to the Clippers. The Clippers drafted, and they still had the Hornets hat.
Yeah.
Before.
Did y'all rebook Hodgepack night?
I've sent a text to them. I need to. There you go, Tom. Get back rolling. Well, sports life and everything in between. Don't get it. Mulligan's has their glow in the dark golf tournament July 12th. Be sure you get your team signed up for that. Lots going on. They got George versus Mini July 19th. Be sure to check them out at Mulligan Sports Bar. Even though they knew who was going number one, came with some drama, some excitement, because the number one draft pick is and was the Dallas Mavericks. Josh mentioned it earlier as we were talking about what kind of pressure is there, and we were talking about the pressure situation, and one of the situations he brought up was Cooper Flagg being drafted after the debacle trade that happened literally at the stroke of 10 night. It wasn't midnight, but it seemed like it might as well been, when the Mavs traded Luka, and then with a 1.8% chance to win the draft lottery, get number one, and Cooper Flagg, who is 18, will turn 19, is your number one pick, and that comes, Josh, you talk about the pressure. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is the pressure? And is there some similarity to the question? But your thoughts on that pressure, what you were saying earlier?
There was pressure up for the height. And I went with it, and obviously has that same pressure. But there's, I think, added pressure for Flagg in the simple fact that he's going to a team is 1 year removed in a finals that just traded away a generational talent, no matter how you think his physical conditioning affects his play, that is not looking to rebuild, is not looking, receiver were when they drafted Clark. So Clark had pressure to perform and live up to the 1-1, live up to the hype that went with it. Flagg has that also, but he's also stepping into a situation where they fully expect to just win, like, immediately.
Yeah.
And I think that turns that pressure knob up quite a bit.
Yeah, he'll be the topic of conversation on First Take every day, Sports Center every day, all that type of thing. A little bit of difference. I think Clark was put on such a pedestal to carry the WNBA. I don't think Flagg will have that as far as being the only face of the league. Where I think Caitlin Clark would. I think the WNBA said, "Hey, Caitlin, take this and run with it, please." I don't think Cooper will have that. I do think it'll help too that there's some pieces around. Oscar Clay Thompson. I know he's good, but walk into a situation. Well, he'll be surrounded by some guys who have had success for him too. He won't have to carry it by himself.
I think and this may sound crazy, and Josh already said he don't mind to admit when I'm wrong and let me know about it, and so obviously he will. I'm not saying they're identical twins, But to me, it's similar to when Caleb Williams was drafted. You know, when Caleb Williams was drafted, the Bears didn't have the number one pick because of their record. They had the number one pick because of a trade that took place with the Panthers. They had DJ Moore. They had some ways when he was drafted. Hopefully, he's going to be a Cowboys. But Eberflus and them just didn't gel, so they weren't very. Now you're about to go and be the coach for this guy that won. Not a lot of success at USC. That's another point. To me, Cooper, the reason I say they're similar is because of what you just said, Aiden. Cooper's coming in. Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson, Derek Lively is a really good player. Kyrie Irving, once he gets healthy, will be back. P.J. Washington is no slight. So he's coming to a roster that, one, is still got a lot of scar tissue. That really probably have scars, not tissue yet. Luka being gone. And I think that's where his pressure comes is, I mentioned it, can he pick up that torch that's off the floor and run with it? Because he's going to have to live up to it. Because they made the pick all for him, and he's going to have to deliver. And honestly, we can't wait delivering at health. Health you could always, but you need your endurance. You should be able to play. All those things is why Cooper Flag. That's where the pressure comes. Because in the NBA, you mentioned it earlier, Josh, that one player can make a difference on a team of 5 on the floor more than maybe a player can in the other sport. He's going to have to make an immediate impact in a very tough Western Conference already, because the team down south, Houston and San Antonio. Yep. Houston, another thing we hadn't talked about, NBA. They traded for Kevin Durant. He's old, but he can still play. San Antonio, you got Victor Wembanyama. They've got some big picks. They've done all those things. So I do think there is some huge pressure on Cooper Flag, not only being number one, but because he's in Dallas.
Yes. I think that the next guy to ever come into a situation where a soup left always has pressure, and I think that's even made more so in partings that don't go smoothly.
And to me, Nico Harris is the caddy, if you will. We talked about golfer and their team. To me, Nico is the caddy here. I hope I'm picking the right club. I'm hoping I've done this thing in a way that, because I made the trade, I sent off the Brooklyn Brawler, if you remember the wrestling days.
Yes.
We sent Luka to LA, made this decision. Whether you want to look at it or not, my luck hit, my numbers hit, if you will. And now I get the number one player, which is the talk of the draft, the talk of the class in Cooper Flag. I've got to make sure I pick the right club.
Hey, and for what it's worth, I think this dude, the Mac a home run. The old Flag versus Luka comparison. I don't know if I want to go down that rabbit hole, but I think the Mavericks hit a home run with this thing. It might take a little while to marinate, but the Mavericks will be back up on the top side in a hurry.
Well, one thing I think that takes some of that pressure away from Nico is the fact that there really wasn't even a 1B in the
True,
draft.
that's true.
There was no one that wasn't going to pick Flag number one. So if Flag ends up a bust, which I don't think is going to happen, but if that did happen, no one's going to be like, oh man,
Dylan Harper.
Harper, yeah. I mean, like the next, like the step down, and then I like watching him play at Baylor, but B.J. Edgecombe were near the same conversation. And, he was what pick. I think that was a no-brainer pick. The only way in a situation like this is to somehow try to overthink it and do something stupid. But anyone who had picked 1-1 was going to pick Cooper Flag, and if it doesn't work out, not anything that anyone's going to be like, well, I mean, we really messed up by this guy. And there's been plenty of drafts, been 2, 3 guys that you're like, which one could go?
Back to what I said about Caleb Williams. Now, we should win with Jake Daniels.
Yeah, well, right.
Or the CJ Stroud conversations that you see, and CJ's kind of backsliding a little bit. But you're exactly right. You had an easy. It's kind of like that credit card. I've learned watching other shows. You don't say those that aren't sponsoring you. But those that say, do you want Derek Jeter or do you want so and so?
Yeah.
It's a pretty easy choice. That's how easy for Nico to pick Cooper Flag to be the guy to hopefully. I mean, he's 6'9", 205, and you mentioned Josh. He could still be he could just now be applying for college.
Oh yeah,
he's
incredibly young.
It's I'm not saying he's going to end up being 7'1" or grow, but if he puts a little weight on, how well will he be on being able to do those things? And I think Dallas, is it a small market, or is it what's
the biggest market in the country?
Yeah, I'd say
All right,
big.
so they're a big market.
Yep.
I think their press, their media, their fan base are pretty. I'm not saying they're Philadelphia. I'm not saying they're New York. But I think they're pretty. And you still get thrown out because of the T-shirts and the signs they brought. So there is that added pressure of taking on this, because even though you're going to be 19, you can barely buy a lottery ticket. You're still going to be expected to be able to perform at a high level, because not only that, you're coming from Duke, which is, it's not a pro team, but it's about as close as you get when it comes to college. Duke back being able to perform right.
Well, I hope I'm right with this comment, but when you think about Dallas and number 1 picks, this just has a feel of a Dallas Cowboys Troy Aikman deal to me, and it took a while to marinate, but Troy made a career in Dallas. He brought some championships. I would love to see a repeat of Dallas and a potential to do that.
And the good thing is he probably won't have to go 1-15, or 1-81 that happened. But I do think there's some comparison between, not identical, but I think Caitlin changed the league.
Oh yeah.
And put money in the pockets of a lot of players in that league. Yep. And I'll say it, and I'll die on this hill. She changed the WNBA like Tiger changed golf. Yep. Because she brought way more money than anybody was getting in notoriety. And in her defense, you've got the Sophia Cunninghams, and you've got the Angel Reese, you've got other names that are popping up, that they're becoming starlets off the court, if you will, commercials, all those things, and then getting after it. I'm gonna tell you, I want Sophia Cunningham on my team. She's the Draymond Green, and if you saw the video,
yes.
Foul hard, Caitlin Clark. Next thing you know, Sophia Cunningham, maybe she'd be too tall to be wrestling at Mulligan, but she comes off the top rope and ready to take some people out.
Correct on that. I wouldn't argue that at all. The change and going into the women for like this year, it kind of disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was all big, like top. It was all on TV. It was showed up on your sports feed as soon as you opened it when Caitlin Clark was in the tournament, and then the year after, it just kind of went away.
It took a seat back, but what didn't take a seat is the WNBA on TV. It's escalated.
Yeah,
Media
it's
deals.
Oh no, that's what I mean. It just
Eyeballs followed Caitlin. Yep.
and those that there are people that are upset about that, but it moved with her.
Yeah, no doubt. So we'll look, before you know it, the NBA Finals will be here. Unfortunately, we did. Can you talk? Well, you didn't even get to that. The Oklahoma City Thunder are your champions. Unfortunately, Tyrese Halliburton going down, but Oklahoma City Thunder winning the championship. Is it a new dynasty? Will it stay on a run? Who'd have thought that the first title that would be coming to the Thunder would not Kevin Durant, but with SGA, Oklahoma City Thunder. Thunder winning the NBA championship. Burton, man, stunned.
He's missing all next season.
Guys, there's a level. It happened to Tyrese. They said I think the most Achilles injury down is the word is that calf sort of puts you in a battle. And he said he would do it again over.
Well, he said he knew the risk going into it, and I've talked about this when it happened on TV. It's like I would do the same. You don't ever know when you have a chance to win Game 7.
And in his defense, started off well, started off hot, and the next thing. So, Oklahoma City Thunder, your champions. When we come back, one guy starting in his career, one guy making his career, and will it hurt his legacy? We'll be back.
Did they travel last night? Oh, they're probably not even job.
Being on the clubs after the game. When I even saw that he was on the schedule, I was,
yeah. That's probably what, 8 hours?
It was 7 hours. From on my way to La Paz, I popped it in just to see how far it was. It was 7 hours.
They probably didn't leave till midnight.
Yeah, finished the game. Everyone's got a shower. It looked like.
I almost brought but he was leaving for Colorado. Brought Coach Wood over from Merkle. Did you see him?
Chris Kincaid.
Who'd have thought a Bulldog go over there and coach at Merkle?
Good pickup.
Yeah.
Where is Kincaid?
He's a coordinator of our junior highs.
Okay. So he was still at Wiley?
Yeah.
I know he was, but then I just hadn't heard his name.
Yeah, he's OC. He applied for the athletic director position, didn't get it. So he went to the junior high coordinator for a year.
Not done that, but, taking kids to ball games.
Yeah.
Somebody go to the back, so it's just like, walking up the
Up
stairs.
there. Yeah, it's like, oh, there's a game going on?
Yeah.
We're going. What day is the first? Wednesday? Tuesday. We're going Rangers Orioles on Tuesday. The first game, probably the only game I'll get to this year.
We haven't been to one this year.
No?
I saw that as interesting, schedule to play the Orioles, 3 games, play the Orioles.
Or yeah,
Yeah, it's just,
home and home.
yeah.
It's probably Baltimore's only trip to Arlington this year, I think.
I've always thought that was interesting.
Is that where McCann's at?
He got released. He's not in the league this year.
The way that schedules shake out, it's like you got your division that you're playing against. Yeah. And you all play the same teams, so it's like when they're hot and everything's going well, know, and hurt you. With the Astros to come back and play that same game, and they're 4-5, and there you go. So it's like impossible to make. Even say football, we play the Eagles, and when the Eagles play the Commanders, like Jalen, just
I do a deal at the beginning of every base. It's like I don't know, like kind of an idea, but like I picked the Rangers to win the West, and of course the Central. They're not doing anything. Who would have thought the Tigers would be 20 games up?
Go back to the last sports life and everything in between. Glad you're with us as we get ready to send you to the. I will be here July 4th next Friday. No Hodgepodge, we'll just celebrate America all together. Hopefully everybody will do that as we continue on the summer. We appreciate Ian Grubin joining us this morning to talk about his upcoming senior year and his trip that was very similar to what Josh and his family did. And so when you're gone, a lot of things happen. We mentioned like, oh yeah, the NBA championship was won. Oh yeah, the U.S. Open won. And
LSU,
yeah.
LSU won that. Was that the Coastal Carolina coach got tossed and the first base coach tossed in the first inning. A lot of enthusiasm there, if you will. And so there's just so much going on. And this probably not quite a 3-hour could have been show, but if it could have been, if you'd have taken and broken down all those things that we just talked about. With it almost being July, that means training camps are coming, and news was out. Of course, we made the announcement, or we didn't, he did. Rogers made the announcement a couple weeks ago that he's number 8 and he's there. And you think about the franchises he's played with. Green Bay, probably one of the top franchises in the NFL. Like it or not, even though they're not very good, the Jets are a focal franchise. Not very good. The media market, it's one of those teams they wish that
They often get preseason hype also. Like you always hear about the Jets, like this year they're going to be good, and then
that's the Mike Greenberg effect. He's a big Jets fan.
Media-driven thing, because they are in a big media market. But sorry, I digress.
No, but you're exactly right. And then now he's last week on his regular appearance of the Pat McAfee show, made the comment that this is most likely it. That's why we didn't sign a multi-year deal, 1-year deal, Steelers and all that. So I threw this in the rundown. Is his legacy fading? Future picture. Is it on track? How is Aaron Rodgers remembered? And is it what happens this season, or does this season still play a role?
About Joe Montana playing for the Chiefs.
I remember he had a little bit of a playoff run, but I think that was about it. Never, obviously, didn't make it to a Super Bowl.
But do you remember anything about Emmitt Smith playing for the Cardinals?
I do not. But I do remember Brett Favre playing for the Vikings and being close to taking them to a Super Bowl.
He when you think of Brett Favre, he's still wearing the Packers jersey in your mind.
Ironically, he needs to go so he can have the exact same route.
Well, I just do it one day contract.
When he retires as a Steeler.
My point being is like,
you don't think it hurts it a little bit?
How? I mean, like, he's a multiple MVP, Super Bowl winner, like, Hall of Famer, first ballot, no doubt. Someone's not going to be like, he really sucked those last couple of years with the Jets and the Steelers. I'm not voting for him first ballot.
Oh, I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Okay, so how is your legacy getting tainted?
That's a great question.
I just look at. I just think all of the conversation appealed. It's just like the podcast and this it's come out about it, his family and all that stuff, and it's not about X's and O's anymore. It's just like go do something else.
And it doesn't help. I mean, his last year. I need to look it up. But his last year at Green Bay, he did great. Detroit Lions ruined that for the end. He didn't integrate at Green Bay. Runs off Mike McCarthy. All those things. And
He's not a pleasant overall person over the last 5 years. I'm not disagreeing with that. And yes, he is too out. I've always felt it very. I'm not a fan of players having standing rows when they're playing. Like do an interview here and there, sure, but being on Pat McAfee
every Tuesday.
Yeah, just it being a thing, it's just I don't like it.
It's overkill.
And so he's way too out there. It is annoying, but I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. So you're not gonna like this year on the field. That would make his past, where you're suddenly like, well, was he really that good? Like that's not gonna happen.
And I agree with that. I agree with that, but I just don't. I don't think the Steelers are going to be any good this year. I don't think Rodgers is going to do anything that's headline noteworthy this year. Where when you've got this crop of young quarterbacks who we mentioned, who have earned the right to get the headlines and the lead stories and such, and even from a Packers perspective, Jordan Love walks right in, and how quickly was Rodgers forgotten in Green Bay? Maybe forgotten's not the right word, but Green Bay continued to have success, the next man up. And I don't know. Rodgers had a great career. I just hope that he's not the headline every Monday morning after a solid week of Sunday.
I'm afraid that at least at the first of the season, it is going to be like talk.
Sure.
If he plays well, that'll be a big story. If he plays terrible, that might even be a bigger story. Go
ahead.
And you also mentioned Jordan Love, and I was thinking it's about time for the Packers to go and draft a quarterback in the first round, isn't it? I mean, don't they need one for
about that time,
3 or 4 years to sit on the bench and then replace him? But anyway, I think that it will be over the top Aaron Rodgers coverage. It's not going to be pleasant. I don't have like ill will towards him as far as like I think it would be pretty cool if he had a decent season. He's in the AFC, so I don't have to worry about that. The only thing that really you've got the legacy of Mike Tomlin always making the playoffs, no matter like
always finishing above 500, making the playoffs. Yeah,
that I think there's a lot of pressure on Tomlin, and he obviously had to have a spot at the table in the discussion of bringing Rodgers in
because he comes with some baggage. He comes with some not baggage, but he comes with a lot of attention. Not necessarily
baggage. Every place he's been, he has run off coaches. It's like that's a lot of baggage.
So my other thought is on him with Mike Tomlin as well is those are two pretty, I would think, alpha personalities. Be curious to see how they jive and what responsibility Aaron Rodgers have. And Ryan Tannehill said this, Joe Flacco has said this. They've got Will Howard on the roster. I don't think he has responsibility to help him to take his job. Does he have to make sure Will Howard could be the guy next year for 2026?
Obviously, this would be a different situation because if he's going into the season saying this is my last season. There's no reason for him to feel like I'm training this guy to take my job. Like, that was part of the rub with him in Green Bay, is Jordan Love was there to be the heir apparent. He was taking over for Aaron Rodgers whenever Aaron Rodgers moved on, and Rodgers did not want anything to do with it. Favre didn't want anything to do with it when you go back to the previous, and I don't blame them. I mean, this is my job. It's not my job to make you better so that they can.
I think this situation's different.
I think it's different too.
Because, hey, I am going to pass this torch to you. I want you to take this over. Because I look at it, Steve Young, I know this is it, and I've got to leave. They want you. Almost similar to, not identical twins, maybe Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger, but what Quinn Ewers did with Arch. I'm going to leave. It's yours. Aaron Rodgers is going to be in the same step. I'm retiring, and I'm giving this to you. We got 5 minutes, and I want to throw this out. I saw Mount Rushmore. A little bit after this was said. Peyton Manning, I think the other one was Joe Montana and Aaron Rodgers. Is that, to me, I think one that could already be on there, and it's not done. Is Mahomes already on that? Well, I'm wondering about the guy on the end. Because Joe Super Bowl. Is there a chance you bump Aaron Rodgers for Mahomes?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because you see that NBA as a coach that gets elected to the coaches, because whether it's Larry back and coach at 97 or whatever, but if Mahomes retired today and said, you know what, I'm going to just go run the Kansas City Royals and get them ready for the new stadium. And even to keep playing, is he already as one of the top 4 greatest quarterbacks?
That's the question. Top 4 and past Rodgers? Yeah, I think it's past Rodgers.
Be taken. Tom Brady, yes, he's done. Chiseled, done. Manning, I don't think anybody's going to take his spot. I think he's there. Joe Montana's the guy that, okay, do I get bumped out because I'm a little bit older? I think Joe Montana's chiseled.
No, I think he is. I do think in football we have put way too much recency bias into judging quarterbacks.
Yes, I agree.
Because the stats are different, and I get that. And Joe Montana is in that transitional period where the quarterback started to pick up bigger stats and stuff like that. You go back in the day, I mean, like, there's a lot of good quarterbacks to talk about. That's one thing that I think is a disservice, that football recency bias that seem to have is that, especially baseball, like 40s, 50s, 60s, people still talk about those guys that played there and how they're, and maybe in baseball it might actually be the opposite, where the all-time greats are always seen as somebody way back in the past. But so I have a hard time but as far as how does Johnny Unitas compare to his peers versus Peyton Manning to his peers?
Well, and I go back to this, and unfortunately we got to the end of the show. Maybe we kick this back off on July 11th. But
Roger Staubach, I mean.
Well, I think the biggest thing, and you mentioned Joe, period of stats and all that, is the fact how many more years would have been in Troy Aikman's tank if the rules were just a little bit similar.
And I
think the
3 Super Bowls, short career, but
ended because of concussions,
yes,
which would not, a lot of those hits would not have been happening 5-10 years.
Exactly, but we've talked about this before with Troy Aikman, and people forget, and I mentioned this with Mahomes. Aikman and Mahomes they had 3 Super Bowls at the same age. And Aikman never won another one.
Yeah.
And Mahomes didn't win
last year.
Yep.
So you can talk about Mahomes, and I don't think that he's done, and I think they'll compete for a while. But you would have said the same thing in 1995 about the Cowboys and Troy Aikman.
True story. Great stuff. Great way to end. Andy, Missy, be back July. Hey, happy birthday, America. Enjoy Independence Day with friends, family, and everything in between. We'll be back. Have a great weekend. So, a year ago, that you never know. They had 3 Super Bowls